I'm going to quickly fire through this specimen multiple choice so you can review it in your own time. 25 questions in 25 minutes. You need around 20 out of 25 to be able to get yourself with a shout of an A grade. Let's start with the idea for normative statement. Question 1, again, we're looking for opinions, opinions, judgments, and there's only one word there that suggests that, and that's the word unfair, which is why C would be the right answer in that case. Moving on quickly to question 2, PPF, and because it's a curve, one thing a curve suggests is increasing opportunity cost. We're moving from X to Y, basically going through the options, which is the other way of doing a multiple choice question. Goods economies become more productively efficient. Well, we're at maximum efficiency here, so in the static sense, there's no way we can increase efficiency. And more resources are being utilised, again, full employment on the curve, it's Pareto optimum. Economies of scale is a long-run concept that really doesn't come into the PPF diagram. And so we're looking at this one, opportunity cost, and what we see is as we move around the curve, each increase in consumption goods costs more in terms of capital goods. So even this last bit here moving up, and the final point would cost much more in terms of capital goods than the previous amount. So it's increasing opportunity cost. Answer is D. Okay. On. Question 3. Economist's definition of physical capital. We're looking for man-made resources. There's only one of those that falls into that category. We're talking labour in the case of A. We're talking land with natural resources in B and C. Income elasticity of demand for an inferior good. We know income elasticity of demand. The thing we're generating is either negative or positive. So inferior goods have a negative coefficient. The answer is A. Just one of those knowledge things you could, if you like, stick down the equation, but it doesn't really help you in this case. But the important thing is the sign becomes important in elasticity. It's a negative sign is an inferior good, a positive sign is a normal good. Right, moving on, question 5, a shift to the right in demand curve. We're looking at something that is an increase in demand, when more is demanded at each and every price level. So that's a movement along a curve. Fall in the price of a cost substitute would cause a decrease in demand, a rise in income, yes, so that would be a positive effect. This one is supply side, so the answer is C in this case. 6 is one of those questions that's usually students get wrong just because of the number of words involved. Stay focused, read it carefully. There's usually a simple solution. It's a switch in subsidies from intensive farming to environmental protection. The only one that really explains that clearly is this idea of an increase in benefit by switching from one to the other. The net external benefits for care in the environment exceed those from subsidising intensive food production. I mean, that would give you a logical reason to move subsidies from intensive food production to protection of the landscape. The rest don't really make sense, but it's a difficult question, that one. We'll move on. Question 7. The diagram below shows 2 supply curves. What's happening to supply? It's increasing. We're looking for something that's going to increase the level of supply. We're looking, again, be careful about what's happening here. Look for that word within the stem. It's an increase in this factor. So an increase in costs would cause a decrease in supply. So that's not the right answer. An increase in income is a demand side factor. An increase in the level of tax would cause a decrease in supply as well. An increase in subsidy is the one we're looking for. So we've eliminated the first few and ended up with the right answer. So you've kind of worked your way towards that. Question 8. When the price mechanism is used to allocate resources. Okay, question 8. We were talking about the price mechanism used to allocate resources. Again, functions price mechanism is basic stuff, really. Signal, incentivize, ration. Those are your three things. The rest of them just don't make sense. So just look for the logical answer. We're going to an elasticity question, again traditionally quite hard for students, but again think about your equation. In this case you've got price falling by 5 and quantity demanded going up by 4. It's going to be a negative number, it's going to be less than 1, there's only one of those there, it's going to be 0.8. You need a calculator in the exam, obviously. Question 10. The diagram below shows demand and supply curves for a consumer good where P1 is the initial equilibrium price. Again, take your time to establish exactly what's going on in the diagram. Initial equilibrium price, increase in price from P1 to P2. So this is the new equilibrium price. What's happened? Again, annotate the exam paper, don't be shy. And then look for the right answer. We're looking for an increase in demand and an increase in supply. And let's go through the options. An increase in price of a substitute, which would cause an increase in demand for our product, yes, and a fall in raw material cost, which would cause an increase in supply. So, bang, straight in there, no need to mess around, let's get on with it. So we're going on to the next question. Question 11. The table below shows the demand and supply schedule for eggs. As a result of falling production costs, supply rises by 60 boxes at all prices. What would be the new equilibrium price? Well, all we've got to do here is add 60 in each of the supply sides. So basically this would be 300, this would be 260, this would be 220, and this would be 180. And so we've just added 60 on to all the supply side amounts. So that was before the shift. It's like what we're doing is we're showing how there's more supply at each and every price level. It's an increase in supply. And then we look for when they match up, and there you have it. We have 220, 220, so the answer is C, 130. Moving on. Question 12. A firm is productively efficient when, and we're looking for, we should have that basic definition of productive efficiency as the minimum point on our average cost curve. So that's a straight definition question that if you don't know, you need to check your definitions. 13, a firm expands, it does so, it employs larger machines to enable it to produce more output for a given amount of inputs. This is the example of, well, again, internal economy of scale. Yeah, we should be aware of these sources of lower costs for larger companies. The idea of a technical economy of scale in this case is what we're looking at, straightforward. If a monopoly exists in a particular industry, any benefit for the consumer is most likely to arise from, we've got to talk about this in detail, but the only real thing going for monopolies in terms of being able to justify them is economies of scale, the idea that you generate lower cost and that lower cost is passed on to the consumer in the form of lower prices. Essentially what you're getting is like a situation where there's an increase in supply because... Okay, question 15, we're looking at positive externality. And that's something that benefits a third party, and again a definition style question. You can go through the other ones and see whether you think they're the right answers, but really there's only one there that points clearly towards a positive externality. Consumption of the product provides benefits to third parties. That's a definition of a a positive externality. Moving on to question 16. Public good is definition based as well. So again, the idea of non-rivalry, two characteristics of public good, non-rivalry and non-excludability. In this case, non-rivalry points to that idea that consumption of the good by one person doesn't reduce the amount of the good available to others. So where's the incentive to go out and buy it if you're not, if you know that it's always going to be there, as it were. So that's basically the case with this. 17. Monopolies lead to market failure because they basically they use barriers to entry to restrict competition. The basic idea is that a monopolist will choose a price and output level different from a competitive market. They restrict output and force up prices in order to make higher profit. 18. The government of a country which is a major tourist destination has proposed a tax of up to £5 per tourist for every night spent in hotel accommodation. The government would be most likely to justify this in terms of, I mean, again, a tax is a solution. It's something that you want to internalise the externality of. It's basically the external costs of tourism. If it's impacting upon local wildlife, then they can use that money to build facilities to protect the local wildlife. Diagram below shows average cost curve. It looks like a productive efficiency issue. At the minimum point in the average cost curve, being X above the firm, is a straightforward definition one. Yeah, okay. So 20. Which of the following is like a likely consequence of the abuse of market power by a monopolist? Well, like all market failures, it's simply a misallocation of resources. That's all it is. So the government intervention in the market through the payment of subsidies to firms can be justified if these firms supply merit goods. I mean, merit goods are things we want to have in greater quantities. There's not enough within the market, so basically we're doing something to encourage production and consumption of the good. So that's a reasonable explanation of that. A policy of increasing subsidies by inner city public transport is most likely to cause a fall in a policy of increasing subsidies for inner city public transport is most likely to cause a fall in negative externalities. Again, it's very similar to the question before. It's linked to policies and intervention related to externalities. Positive externalities encouraged, negative externalities discouraged. Question 23. Which of the following is an example of government intervention to correct market failure? Tax on a negative externality. Yeah, seems straightforward. Price elasticity of supply measures the responsiveness of quantity supplied to a change in. I mean, again, a very straightforward question. I'd be surprised if you got one straightforward on the exam. Last question now. Diagram shows marginal private, marginal social benefit, marginal private, marginal social cost. And there's a negative externality. The negative externality is reflected in the point in the idea that marginal social cost is greater than marginal private cost. So in the absence of intervention by government in the private market equilibriums at point J, private cost and private benefit are considered. Output of Q1 to achieve more efficient output level for the good, the government could, and we're looking for a policy intervention here. Which ones of these policies make sense? Let's have a look. Subsidy, again, it's a negative externality. You're not going to encourage more of it, you want less of it. Minimum price is price floor, which is a valid intervention, but we've got to see where the price floor is being set. If it's set at OE, it's below equilibrium and therefore passive. Therefore, it's not the right answer. Maximum price of OG, we don't set maximum prices. We don't set price ceilings on things we're trying to discourage. It's the wrong type of intervention. So, I mean, we've got there through a process of elimination, but just to make sure, e.g., yeah? So if we look at it, remember, at a new equilibrium, the vertical distance between the two curves represents the tax per unit, which equates to the distance, e.g. here. So here is a tax that's being imposed in order to bring about an efficient level of output. So D is the right answer. And that's it.